Test, test, test.
يلا. Look at me. What do you need? خلاص. I think we need to start. You guys, we need to start. You figure it out according to the outcome. Okay? المايك مش ظابط. المايك is not connected. Okay. مايكو ضو صح؟
كنترول طارق هلسة يلا
Hello?
يلا زور
Hi. كيفكم? How was lunch? Was lunch good? Yeah, bravo بالفرن. A startup we have that empowers women. Thank you. And now, as an investor, this is very exciting for me. We are going to hear 11 startups pitch their businesses to us. So welcome to the stage, please, the 11 startups from Mashreq. Thank you.
Big toy companies designed for the US and Europe only. Yet the appetite for toys is growing much faster everywhere else. Can we bring diversity into this $100 billion industry? Can we start again? All right. Okay. Can we reset the clock? Okay. Big toy companies designed for the US and Europe only. Yet appetite for toys is growing much faster everywhere else. Can we bring diversity into this $100 billion market and grow it beyond the mainstream? Hi, I'm the guy in the yellow shoes, and I'm with MakerBrain. We're putting together the world's largest catalog of toy designs. When you buy a box of Lego, everybody knows Lego, you're buying the same ingredients in new packaging with one recipe to build one toy. They make money selling you plastic ingredients. We make money selling you digital recipes to use these ingredients. And we've built software that lets anyone, anywhere in the world, design and sell these recipes. We already have 25,000 real people from Brazil to Vietnam, who've built more than 15,000 digital toys on our platform. And we're growing at double digits every month. We're empowering everyone to participate in the very important global toy industry. Join us.
Hello, everyone. Carwa is the first ride-hailing platform that disrupted and digitized the transport industry in Iraq. The industry has been suffering so many problems, so it's not regulated in terms of quality, safety, and pricing. The country has suffered security issues, and traditional hailing isn't convenient anymore, especially in the severe weather condition in Iraq. So at Carwa, we leverage the global ride-hailing model. We were able to localize it, customize it, and build our network and platform that connect drivers with the riders and deliver safe, convenient, and affordable rides. We were able to register thousands of users, hundreds of vetted drivers, and we completed tens of thousands of trips. And our average customer rating is 4.75 out of 5. We're looking for a strategic partnership that can boost our growth nationwide. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Penelope Shihab. I am scientist and now entrepreneur. I started a company in Jordan 2005. It's a biotech company where we developed a skincare, and it is the first skincare line and formula patented in the US, in the UK, and in Jordan to solve the acne problems. It's based on antibodies from the camel milk. We get all the approvals to sell in the US, FDA, Europe, and the Middle East. We started sales 2 years ago. We secured almost $1 million in sales and became profitable. Now, we're asking for $5 million to grow our company, to expand globally, to develop new products, and to develop more patented products. The global size of this market is huge, and the demand, the consumer demand for natural-based anti-acne product is increasingly. It's projected to be 3.5 billion in 2020. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone. Over the next 5 years, more than 150 million adults in MENA will require a digital payment method, of which the existing solutions in the market today cannot provide. This is due to banks and FIs cannot innovate on top of their payment cards today, as it sits on legacy technology that they actually don't control, which makes it slow and expensive to innovate at the speed needed for today's needs. So at NIMCard, we provide a modern, API-based issuing processing platform that helps banks, fintechs, and FIs digitize the card issuing process end-to-end, helping them in cutting costs and launching new innovative card programs in as little as 8 weeks. We've signed the largest bank in Lebanon. We've signed one of only 5 issuers in Iraq. We've signed a modern bank in Jordan and a fintech in Switzerland, and they're all launching this year. We're currently raising our Series A and would love to talk to investors in the room today. So thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Dana Sabah, founder of Erbil Delivery, a grocery delivery service in Iraq. The problem with grocery shopping is time-consuming, and most of the time is frustrating. So we developed a mobile app for you to do your grocery shopping online using our app, and we get them delivered to your doorstep. We made the whole experience easy. You can order from supermarkets and main specialty stores inside the city easily, and we get them delivered. The grocery shopping market size in Iraq is big. It's around 3 billion USD. Erbil city represents 350 million USD. We generate revenue mainly from the commissions we take from the supermarket and the stores, and from the delivery fees that we take from the customer side. We've been able to deliver more than 2,000 customers in the past 6 months with a low customer acquisition cost. We are looking to raise funds to expand to other states of Iraq and later reach regionally. Thank you.
Hello. For over 30 years, our family specialized in distribution and manufacturing of cosmetics and detergents. During this time, we always faced a pain in monitoring and preparing our field employees. This is why we created Rebzo, the first Arabic-enabled mobile CRM in the Middle East. Rebzo offers GPS tracking, sales invoicing, and data collection solutions. Currently, we're working with the biggest brands in the region, like Procter & Gamble, Unilever, and Bayer Pharmaceuticals. We have over 60 clients in 7 countries, where we have quadrupled our revenues past year. We are finalizing our pre-Series A, where we intend to use this fund to fuel our expansion in the Middle East. Finally, we hope that we will become someday the Salesforce of the Middle East. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Heart failure is the #1 cause of death in the world. A major contributing condition is the mitral and tricuspid valve regurgitation, or leaky valve, which occurs in about 2% of the general population. However, it turns out a big portion of these patients cannot undergo the open heart treatment. Why? Because they're elderly and the risk outweighs the benefit. Now, this unmet need translates into a multi-billion-dollar market that is currently untapped. At Mayacor, we've developed a novel, transcatheter, minimally invasive approach to treat those valves without the need of open heart surgery. Our device is the only device that replicates the surgical gold standard without the need, leading to an effective and long-lasting repair. We currently are doing our animal trials in the US and have begun fundraising for a Series A round to do and reach humans. One more thing, so I would like to thank the World Bank because we were funded partially by the World Bank via ISME, MEVP as well, and IM Capital, and several angels. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Hani Qasim, and I'm the founder of Metapharma in Iraq. We are a B2B platform connecting pharmacies to suppliers. We enable pharmacies to buy more product for lower prices. Pharmacies are spending between 30 minutes to an hour and a half every day on the phone talking with suppliers. They're not checking prices either. They're also facing 20 to 40% missing items every day. With Metapharma, we're enabling pharmacies to buy more products and have them more available, and they're comparing prices and getting lower prices. For suppliers, we're enabling suppliers to increase their volumes and lower their dispatching costs. Iraq is a $2 billion pharmaceutical market. For every 10 pharmacies that we approach, 8 subscribe with us. Today, we have between $600 and $1,000 per pharmacy per day transaction. We are here looking for strategic partners and raising funds. Thank you.
We all want to be part of something. A group of friends who get us. A community. A tribe. And my tribe is about you being yourself. And what you wear basically defines you. Jobiru is a streetwear brand that represents the voice and heart of Arab youth. We started from a small street market in Jordan, and from there we were able to grow one of the region's most recognizable brands, selling over 1 million t-shirts to over 50 countries. Being a data-driven brand since day one allowed us to collect hundreds of thousands of data points on our customers, allowing us to understand them very deeply and the pop culture they love. Our expertise is the reason why global brands such as Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, and many others have collaborated with Joe Bedu to create localized collections for them. In the US, Mickey's basically part of the family. In the Arab world, we love Mickey, but he's still a tourist. Joe Bedu makes him one of us. We are now being approached by the biggest players in the sports, music, and gaming industry to do the same for them. My team and I have over 50 years experience in concept development, retail, production, and fulfillment. With 6 out of the 10 major Hollywood studios already signed to Joe Bedu, we're now scaling our online platform in the GCC to become the first global Arab retail brand. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Iraq's huge potential requires crucial modern solutions for the delivery of goods within cities and between cities. This is the backbone for day-to-day trade in any country, and that's why we created Sandoog. Sandoog is an online delivery service that allows online merchants to deliver their goods successfully and efficiently anywhere in Iraq, to the customers anywhere in Iraq. So, what do we offer? Through our digital dashboard, we allow merchants to be able to reduce their failed order rates from 40% down to 20%. This is what we've done in 1 year. And we allow them to efficiently manage their cash-on-delivery transactions, and that's 90% of daily transactions in Iraq. In 1 year, since starting April last year, we've managed to deliver to over 60,000 customers successfully, serving over 800 merchants, and we've generated $250,000 in gross revenue. We're now raising a seed fund to be able to unlock marketing all over the country and optimize our operations and unlock more technological solutions. Thank you very much.
Hello. Kindle and Google are entering the market of the Arabic ebooks. But what they and the other players didn't succeed in solving yet is giving the Arabic readers a convenient and affordable access to those ebooks and enabling the outdated Arabic publishers and authors to become scalable and updated with the new technologies. I'm Iman Haylouz, the CEO and founder of Abjad, the biggest social reading platform with a community of 1 million members, where they rate, review, and get unlimited access to the Arabic ebooks. We do the digitizing for the Arabic publishers and authors, and then we offer them to the Arabic readers for a monthly subscriptions for only $6 a month. In 2018, we reached $250K in annual revenue through 6K paying subscribers. We are now the highest revenue generating platform for the Arabic publishers. In 2022, we will reach to 40K paying subscribers, generating 3.2 million in annual revenue. To reach there, we're investing aggressively in the users and the ebook acquisition, where both are supported by the ongoing investment in the technology and product. And for that, we're raising 1.2 million with $500,000 committed. And happy to discuss this in further details on an individual basis. Thank you.
I'm good, thank you. Hello again. So again, my name is Dina Saudi. For those who are not with us in the morning, I will be your MC in this forum. And we also learned from my talk, in case you were with us, that I'm also an investor. So a round of applause to our startups. Amazing. Timing, the pitches, the love, the passion. Amazing. And now we're going to move to the fourth session of the Digital Mashreq Forum to hear about boosting digital entrepreneurship in Mashreq, moderated by Philip Bahushi, the founder of Magnet. I welcome him to discuss the state of entrepreneurship ecosystem in the region and introduce his panelists. Thank you.
Good afternoon. As you can see, this is quite a big panel that we're going to have to manage. It's a pleasure being here today. Thanks to the World Bank for setting this all up. Just an introduction for myself. My name is Philip Baharshi. I founded a platform called Magnet, which looks to aggregate all of the data and information here on the Middle East. The particular discussion today is to discuss the trends and potential of digital entrepreneurship here in the Mashreq. And to put a little bit of context, from a venture space, we're seeing a massive acceleration in the amount of investment in the MENA region. Last year alone was a record year, nearly $900 million worth of investment and over 400 deals that took place. And we'll be publishing our next report in the next 2 weeks, where you're going to see that we're on track to beat even 2018. But today we're here to focus on the Mashreq, as defined by Jordan, Lebanon, and Iraq. So I asked my team to do a little bit of digging into the actual data. And we saw that in terms of number of transactions, 7% came from Lebanon, 4% from Jordan, and in terms of actual dollar amounts, 11% came from Lebanon and 7% in Jordan. Surprisingly, but also somewhat unsurprisingly, Iraq didn't have much data. And that's something that I would like to address, and it's an open invitation to anybody that has information on the Iraq space. We would love to cover it. But putting that as context, I think what's interesting about each of these three countries is that they're all at different stages in the MENA ecosystem. And so instead of me introducing everybody along the panel, because I think that'll take quite a while, I'll ask each of you, if you can go along, to introduce yourself briefly so we can try and make this as engaging as possible, and to identify one challenge that you think is the biggest problem that founders you've been speaking about in your country specifically highlight as an impediment to their growth. And if it's already been repeated, I ask you to think of another one as we go down the line.
Thank you very much. I think the biggest impediment that we have is it is the combination of understanding what companies need and money together, which we're calling smart money.
And if you could just introduce yourself to everybody.
My name is Layth Al-Qasim.
It went.
It went, so that's good. I'm from the Innovative Small and Medium Enterprise Support Fund in Jordan.
Hello, my name is Bassam Falah. I'm the founder of Innovest Middle East. Innovest Middle East is an investment company that invests in new startups in the Middle East region. We're based in Dubai with presence in Saudi, in Iraq, and a support office that's growing in Lebanon. We invest in pre-seed and seed funding, as well as value creation, in-kind support, where we provide startups with access to resources that is important for their scale-up. One of the challenges I'm talking on behalf, the experience that we'll be sharing is about Iraq and the platform that we launched, Iraqpreneurs. So based on that, I would say one of the challenges that startups face there is access to funds. Most of the startups that you have seen and you will see depend on bootstrapping, so they're using their own resources or resources of their families and friends, and we have to work together in attracting investors and institutional investors as well.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Nicolas Rohana. I come from Lebanon, Beirut, where I am the general manager of IM Capital, which is a $20 million fund under USAID MENA Investment Initiative. And our mandate is to ease access to early stage funding. We do that with three components. One is matching capital, where we de-risk the round with other investors. We match dollar to dollar. And we can do it in any sector, not just technology. So we've done tech and non-tech since 2015. Second component to de-risk capital is we guarantee the equity or the capital of the investor. So in order for him to put money in the startup. And the third component is technical assistance, where we build capacity and for entrepreneurs and for angel investors. And about what's needed, there are lots of challenges, obviously, but our role as IM Capital is to identify, challenges in the early stage, where this is our space, and to fill gaps. And one of the gaps that we've identified and filled is structuring business angel groups, because angels are very important in any ecosystem. they come in at the early stage, very risky. So this is where we came in, and we managed so far 4 angel groups that invested in early stage funding.
Thank you. Alice?
Hi, everybody. My name is Alice Bosley. I'm the executive director and founder of 51 Labs. We are a startup incubator based in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. We support early or idea stage entrepreneurs from all of the diverse communities that are based in the Kurdistan region. So that means we work with young Kurdish entrepreneurs, also people from across Iraq and from across Syria. And we've seen, when we started in 2017, we were the only incubator in all of Iraq. Now there are more people coming into the ecosystem, and I think we're really seeing a lot of really exciting things happening in Iraq, a lot of opportunities. But there are also a lot of challenges, and kind of adding to the challenge that was mentioned earlier, I'd say one huge challenge specifically for tech entrepreneurs in Iraq is the lack of e-payment methods. So you launch an app, but it's still payment on delivery, which causes a huge amount of risk for the entrepreneurs, and just a lack of incentive to launch scalable technology businesses. So that's a real challenge.
Hi, my name is Basil Aoun from Beirut. I'm the program manager of the ISME. The ISME is the World Bank funded program. The size of the facility is $30 million. Actually, basically what we do is we support early stage financing through 3 different components. The first one is grants to early stage startups. The second one is direct co-investment alongside the venture capital funds. And the third one is a new component, which is the fund of fund, where we invest directly in the funds rather than go and co-invest alongside them. The major challenges that we're facing now in Beirut, I will put it at the level of the ecosystem, since the challenge of the ecosystem will impact directly the founders and the entrepreneurs. What we've done actually since 2015, we've built with like 3 initiatives, being I Am Capital with Nicolas, ISME, and the Central Bank with 331. If I compare it to a startup, we've seeded this ecosystem with these 3 initiatives. We've built an ecosystem, we have accelerators, incubators, and we proved the concept. So now we know that it can work. However, now we're at the Series A level, where we have to maintain and to finance this ecosystem and seeking additional financing and injecting more and more capital in order to consolidate the ecosystem, maintain it, and take it to the second level. And this will impact directly the founders, where the availability of the cash, the availability of the support institution will be maintained for several years. Thank you.
And last but not least, Mohammed Houchou, I believe is the first startup on a panel today at an event, so hopefully we can get some startup insights as well.
My pleasure. So my name is Mohammed Shakir. I'm a founder of a company called Arabia Weather. We do weather forecasting, decision support solutions for various sectors that are impacted by weather, such as airlines and airports, agriculture, renewable energy, and sea operations, such as oil and gas and shipping. I am also a chairman of a newly established association here in Jordan called Jordan Entrepreneurship and Innovation Association. It's meant to be as a gathering for all entrepreneurs and innovators in Jordan. We see in the region, in Mashreq countries, including Jordan, that what would be the top challenge for the startups is to scale while they continue to operate in the same country. So the problem that we identified is that many of the companies won't be able to scale because lack of access to market, access to talents, and even capital. So they typically move to other countries with their operations to be able to scale. Relatively, our market sizes are relatively small, but this does not and should not prevent us from continue all of our operations in those countries while getting access to market internationally and regionally, in addition to capital and talents and so on. So this is what we see, and what we identified is the top challenge that are facing startups in the region, and specifically in Jordan. And we are working very closely with the government and stakeholders to be able to solve such kind of problems. Thank you.
Thank you. So across the board, commonly you hear things: funding, bureaucracy, scale, talent, and that's not dissimilar to anywhere else in emerging markets. I'm going to try and take an approach like we get told when you're pitching. What's the problem? What's the solution? Size of market, etc. But in this particular case, in each of your countries, and I'll pick on 3 of you, one from each country, what would you consider, given the audience of people that you have here who are change makers, as a medium-term success for your country individually? So we start with Alice, where Iraq is somewhat one of the most recent and newest ecosystems. What would you consider to be a gauge of success in Iraq in the next 3 to 4 years?
Moving forward.
Yes.
So I think we're at a really interesting point in Iraq where I think about 5 years ago, tech startups really kind of started happening. Over the past number of years, though, there have been a lot of challenges in Iraq, right? There's been ISIS, there's been the economy crash, there's been the drop in oil prices. Last year was the Kurdish referendum, which created a lot of challenges. But the thing that I think is really incredible is the entrepreneurs that lasted through all of this. You know, there are startups that have weathered the ups and downs of being in Iraq. And I think that that shows a lot of grit and a lot of resilience. And so we're at a point today where I think there are a number of tech startups that are quite mature for Iraq's market. They've spread across a number of cities. They're ready for regional expansion. The challenge is that investors aren't necessarily ready to invest in Iraq. And so I think the sign of success over the next 3 to 4 years is, can these businesses get the level of investment necessary to expand regionally and to really take their solutions beyond? And can the startups, I think we were talking about this earlier, can the startups adapt beyond Iraq's market to be successful in other markets?
Thank you. And Laith, we look at Jordan. So traditionally, it's historically known as a hub here, very, very big, but it's in a very different phase to Iraq. What would you like to see, given the multitudes of initiatives that are taking place right now, as a medium-term, 3 to 4 year success for Jordan?
So there's a couple of things I want to say. One that has nothing to do with your question, but,
sure.
But I'm going to say this anyway. I want to just recognize all of the entrepreneurs that did their pitches. This is really inspiring for Jordan and for Lebanon and for Iraq. So my hat off to all of you. The other thing that I want to say is that the ISSF is a World Bank, Central Bank funded policy tool in Jordan, and our objective is to create investment funds and to make direct investments. So for the Jordanian entrepreneurs that are here and for the investors and the investment funds that are here, is that if the entrepreneurs and an investor agree to work, if an entrepreneur can find an investor, we will co-invest with any of the Jordanian companies that come together. So in the coming activities, if you find a lead investor from the investors or the funds and the Jordanian entrepreneur, please come and talk to us, we will co-invest. Now, the answer to your question. The entrepreneurial journey in Jordan is over 30 years old. It started in the late 80s. And we've done a lot of trials. We've invested in a lot of hardware, and by hardware I mean incubators and accelerators and funds and things like that. And really the most, I think in hindsight, the most important thing is not the investment in the hardware, it's investment in the people who are behind the hardware, who understand or need to understand that there is a journey that startups make from angel investment all the way to Series A, B, C, and then eventually to some form of exit or IPO or private equity. The short answer to your question over the next 3 to 4 years is I would like to see more regional expansion of Jordanian companies out of Jordan into the region, and I would also like to see more expansion of Jordanian companies globally. I think we're at the cusp. I think we're going to see a couple of these things happen. I'm fairly confident this will occur.
I'm going to ask you a follow-up. We'll come on to scaling. But so I was in Istanbul last week, and what I found fascinating was that in Turkey, with a huge market, there's an obsession of staying Turkish and then going to the US. and that this regional expansion concept doesn't necessarily exist. In Jordan, why do you think you haven't seen as many startups looking to scale across the region?
I think this goes back to the smart money, stupid money comment I made at the beginning. It is very important for the people who bring funding, and it's very important for the entrepreneurs when you seek funding. If somebody just gives you money, I would be very wary, because that's all they're going to give you. And you need to find an investor who's going to ask you, 200 questions, who's asking you about the structure of your company, who's asking you about your organizational structure, who's asking you about the skills and the competencies of the people that you have. Because the moment you break out of, in our case, a very small Jordanian market, and you start going regionally first, you will not be able to handle all of the activity that's going to be generated. We're a very small market. If you go from here to Saudi, you sell for 1 JD here, you're going to be selling 200 JDs there. If you have 1 client here, you're going to have 200 clients there. So if you do not have your systems correctly developed, if you do not have the right people in the right places, you're going to crash and burn there. And so make sure that when you seek out funding, this is to the entrepreneurs, that you seek out smart money, people who can actually help you evolve your company as you grow.
Thank you. And Basil, if we go to you for Lebanon, again, if we look at the numbers, maybe more investment, more activity. His Excellency earlier mentioned 331 kind of boosted the ecosystem, but we're in a very different phase now where startups are looking to raise larger tickets, higher amounts. What is success for Lebanon in the next 2 to 3 years?
Actually, for Lebanon, the major thing is like to have this 1 or 2 success stories out of the effort that has been done for the last 4 years in order to convince policymakers to invest more and more in our ecosystem. However, the challenge now, in order to get to these success stories, is to be able to raise Series A or Series B funding. If we look at the landscape of venture capital, for a Lebanese company today to raise $5 million out of Beirut, you need to convince 3 to 4 VC, which is very hard, and it represents like 40% of the number of funds based in Beirut. So it's hard, and it's hard to attract international VCs since we have the Lebanese challenges and the Lebanese brand name that is like pushing back and not helping us to have international investor investing in our startups. So the challenge now is to have additional funding and larger funds that can handle the scalability of the startups and fund their scalability. So now if you go for a $5 million and you convince 4 VCs, it will take you 6 months to close the deal. And for a startup, the time is killer.
So we've discussed the problem to this extent. You've got government people, policymakers here in the room. If we go back to the 3 different countries and say, if you could give one solution, although you'd like to have multiple, if there's one initiative that you would be going to in each of the countries to say, look, this is something that will really help boost the ecosystem. If we start in Iraq again, Bassam, when you're speaking to the ministers, what would you like them to acknowledge needs to be changed, if anything, given the role of government? As one of the speakers earlier said, we create the environment, the private sector fills it, then we get out the way. But to create that environment, what is needed in Iraq?
Yeah, similar to my colleague, before I answer the question, I have an intervention, sure. If that's fine with you. We are, and me specifically, we're very passionate about entrepreneurs in Iraq, and we believe in the human capital of Iraqis. And if I want to, I was looking at the schedule and the agenda, and it's there's these Ignite speeches from time to time. And I'd like this panel to be one of the Ignite sessions. So I want to ask the audience, how many of the audience are entrepreneurs? Okay, are they the ones without ties, or? Okay, with a tie. The thing is, I bet you there are more entrepreneurs in this room that we think there are. If you were brought up in this part of the world, and against all odds, you made it to this room, then you are already an entrepreneur. I believe my parents, who spent their life as employees, are entrepreneurs. If you've studied on a candle and then thought of putting some mirrors in front of the candle to have more light, you're an entrepreneur. If you sold your books, your used books, and tried to buy new ones, you are an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship, to a large extent, is related to our survival instinct. And a lot of the characters of entrepreneurs, I see it a lot in our part of the world. Our eagerness to succeed. I haven't seen it. I've been to many countries. I've been exposed to many entrepreneurs from around the world. I haven't seen the eagerness to succeed and to stand the way I've seen it in this part of the world. And I'm really impressed from what we've seen in Iraq. We've launched the Iraqpreneurs Ruwad al-Iraq a year ago, and we had more than 3,000 participants. At the time, we launched similar platforms across the MENA region, and we had 5,000 participants. So there's lots of eagerness, and as was mentioned earlier, what they're looking for is opportunities, and the opportunities are in the hands of the lawmakers. I think I've seen earlier what the lawmakers have promised to bring into Jordan, Iraq, and Lebanon. And it's very promising. And I was talking to some entrepreneurs in the room, and they were already talking about good changes that's happening in their countries. One that I would believe that is important is digital and financial literacy. It was mentioned earlier by His Excellence Dr. Razaz that digital literacy should not be only for the elites. And we tried through our platform, and we always try to make digital literacy accessible for remote areas. And I think this is a priority.
Thank you. Mohammed, Jordan, you're on this board for JIRA, where you're able to have what I've seen an extremely active conversation with the government, who seem to be very receptive and listening. What is your message when you're speaking to them to see how to boost what needs to be done here in Jordan?
We actually lucky to have those ministers working with us now on boosting the entrepreneurship. We think that the main pillars of boosting entrepreneurship in Jordan would be the ease of doing business and starting a business. We're working with different stakeholders collaboratively to do that. We also think that one of the main elements that we should highlight is access to capital. Access to capital now is very concentrated on early stage and up to Series A. But beyond that, the growth capital that is needed for the companies to scale and to create bigger companies and then success stories is very limited. I think also one of the main things that we are also working on, and I'm seeing others working in Jordan, is how to get more institutionalizing the angel investing, so getting more money coming into that scene. So my message is to continue on what we are working, to continue in that program, working on the regulatory part, making it much more friendly to entrepreneurs to start the businesses, because at the end of the day, what we are all doing is contributing in two main KPIs for the governments. First is employment. So with having more SMEs, more entrepreneurial companies, this would mean hiring more people. And number two is having more FDIs, or foreign direct investments happening in Jordan. Also, my message is not only for government, but for all stakeholders, including the private sector, that we should also focus not only on the main cities in the countries, because entrepreneurship does exist in Jordan, as example, in other cities other than Amman. So we think that this is a national thing that we can build together. And we've been with His Majesty to Singapore 2 weeks ago in a trade trip. So we've also noticed that Singapore is an example, which is very similar in economy to Jordan in terms of the access to national resources and other stuff. They have been very dependent on SMEs and entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. So my message is to continue and to focus on that, and not only to be limited in the main cities, on the capital in Amman. It has to be everywhere, all over the country.
Thank you. Nicola, Circular 331 had a lot of publicity around it as an initiative that was somewhat government supporting the central bank to push out funding. It's up for debate to a certain extent how successful that was, but what were some of the learning lessons from that? And if you were to go back to the government now and say, we need to solve for funding, is there a role for the government to play in it? And what should they be doing?
Just to be a bit
correct
about this, the Circular 331, it's not a government thing, just to be clear. It comes from the central bank, which has its autonomy. Yeah. So luckily, because if it went through the government, I don't think that would have really passed. So we're lucky that we have this Circular 331 coming from the central bank, which allowed the banks to invest equity in companies, because the job of a bank, is to give loans, and they don't have the right to give equity. And this is not good for startups. Loans, startups can't have loans; they don't have any collateral, etc. So what happened in 2013 is that overnight, after lobbying with the governor of central bank, so he issued a circular, allowing the banks to invest equities up to 3% of their reserves and capital in startups, which unleashed, on aggregate, $500 million overnight in this knowledge economy, which is fine. I mean, it's not just okay. So this happened, and then the central bank gave a carrot for the banks for them to use this instrument. They guaranteed 75% of their investments. So again, it's de-risking the investment of the bank, for them to actually go and deploy this capital in startups, and split 50-50 the returns. Now, what happened is, because of that, I mean, and it's not because of the banks' jobs to do equities. So funds were created. So we have like around now today, maybe 10 VCs that were created under this Circular 331, and all the LPs of these VCs are banks, are Lebanese banks. So anyway, and so half of the $500 million are actually deployed. And so it really shook the ecosystem. And mind you, I mean, going back to your question, is it good or bad? I mean, okay, the Circular 331 is not going to solve all the problems of, financing or creating this landscape or ecosystem. It's just focused on, financing in a very specific life cycle of a company. And the tickets of the VCs, and the VCs that were created were around like 50 to 70 million dollar range, and the average tickets are around 1 to 2 million. So it's like a bit later stage financing than seed and pre-seed. And what the Circular 331 did as well, to be able to get deal flow for these funds, is to give 100% guarantees for accelerators, to create pipeline and startups for these funds. And so a few programs were created as well, upstream, really at the early stage and seed, through accelerators or seed accelerators, that gave equity to startups, through a 3-month program, and then they supposedly go and get funding from the VCs. And obviously, I mean, as I said, it's not going to solve all the problems. And as I said in the beginning, I mean, you need lots of building blocks to create an ecosystem or a landscape. So Circular 331 filled one gap and a half, the accelerators, a bit of the accelerators, but then there are lots of gaps. As I said, I mean, you have the pre-seed accelerators that are needed. You need to go to universities to create, again, some traction over there to spin off, technology from research. You have to have post-accelerators as well, because there is a gap between accelerators and the angels. There were no angels, so we created these angel groups to be able, to further seed fund the startups that are coming from the accelerators before they get to VC ready, that are created by 331. And then, as Basil mentioned, I mean, okay, and beyond this, we have a problem. We still have a gap, because we have to think beyond these 331 funds. What will happen? We need, post Series A funding, because we're creating this flux of companies and startups. But now we have to think ahead and see what will happen when these startups will start to raise, $5 to $10 million. So we need Series A, Series B, Series, and etc. For that matter. So that's a plea for the World Bank. We need funds like ISME, 10 times what ISME is today, to be able to really, get the startups downstream. Voila.
So, what I find quite interesting is the name of the game to be successful in the VC space, and you're the investors, not me, but ultimately is scale. And one of the questions here, which is what we kind of alluded to earlier, how can you boost entrepreneurship within a highly regulated environment in the region? And one of the challenges, when you look at the likes of your Kareems and Souks, etc., their valuations go up every time they can scale into new geographies, more countries, capture new markets. And yet there's almost a lack of visibility on, number one, how to do that. And number two, I've seen this with Magnet. I don't know any government that has articulated their proposition particularly well to the market to give people, number one, a reason to scale, and number two, a point of which to contact to know how to do it effectively. I mean, you're nodding your head. What is part of the solution to helping startups scale out, but also to help other startups that may be looking at your 3 countries and saying, well, look, I want to come to those countries to scale in?
It's a more fundamental issue, I think. As I was listening to my colleagues speak, I don't think governments have old tools. And I think the challenges and the opportunities that we face in the region requires a change in the way that government operates. And one of the things that has been annoying me is that there isn't a common vision between the government and the private sector. What is the new economic identity of Jordan, or what is the new economic identity of Iraq or Lebanon or any other country? And government will not be able to engage properly until that vision has been identified. Once that vision is identified and both the private sector and the public sector agree to it, and they agree to their various roles, it is going to become very obvious, I think, to government and to the stakeholders, that the tools that they have are insufficient to achieve that vision. And I think part of the challenge now is they're trying to do new things with old tools and trying to do new things with old ideas. And it is, I think it's 80% a mental battle at the moment, a perception battle, before it's anything else.
What kind of new tools would you be thinking about to try and support this?
I said that entrepreneurship and venture capital started 30 years ago in Jordan. I was part of a company called the Jordan Technology Group. We funded a lot of things in manufacturing, in animation, in software, in agriculture. Everything that was physical was highly regulated. Everything that's virtual, software development, e-commerce, whatever, is difficult to regulate because there's nothing there. So the opportunities, and I saw huge growth and huge opportunities in things that were virtual. And I saw physical companies that did manufacturing and design, have a lot of difficulty because of the way government dealt with it. Government has to understand that the less regulation, the easier that the economy will move. And that is a fundamental shift from the last century. And that's the thing that needs to happen. And I think our government has been demonstrating more and more this understanding. We still see vestiges of trying to implement old concepts. And every time they implement these old concepts, their expectations, they expect if I do this, revenues will increase. They do this and revenues drop. Governments need to understand, I think all countries need to understand, that countries are in competition with each other. Now with human skills and human capital and IT and internet, We just saw Walid Faza earlier today from MSA Capital. He was in Jordan, he went to Dubai, he's now in China. Great for him, but that should be a message to government that people will leave, ideas will leave, and they have to find a way to bring opportunities back.
Well, we're hoping that Walid is bringing China to the Middle East.
Well, I understand that, and I'm sure he will, but the lesson is for government, not for Walid.
Okay, fine. No, because we see, I think that's something that's quite interesting when we look at scale. We're talking at a scale at a regional level, but actually it's also you need to kind of break out of the region. And we as Magnet, for instance, have the largest number of inbound requests coming from Asian investors looking at the region, understanding the dynamics of the region.
You have to, and I think one of the important things, I see a lot of breakouts occurring, but I don't know if it is a breakout for opportunity or it's a breakout because they're running away.
Okay, fine. And so if we look at Iraq, for instance, it's a bit of a chicken and egg from what I've had in very limited conversations. Is it that investors are risk averse, understandably given the geopolitics of the country, and that they would like to see them explore scaling out? Or do we need to start seeing investment in those companies to be able to get bigger to then scale out? I mean, what is the take when you're looking at scale, even from an Iraq perspective, to start seeing venture investment come to the country?
Actually, indeed, a chicken and egg. You see to a large extent investors in countries like Iraq are very conventional investors that are looking for, because they see Iraq as a high-risk country, then they would be looking for short-term, high return. And I think the mindset of investors, one, has to change. And we believe Iraq carries lots of opportunity for long-term investors who are ready to invest in the startup ecosystem in Iraq. So this is from first side. From the other side, you will need lots of work that is being done to reach that level of VCs and institutional investors. So, you know, the roadmap includes lots of different series of investments. And till today, startups are depending on family and friends financing and small angel investing. And this is why you will need micro funds and microfinancing and mezzanine financing, different solutions that could help startups to scale up to be ready for institutional investors.
And we were discussing yesterday, you need some light at the end of the tunnel. Ultimately, you say to change the VC or the investor mindset. Well, I mean, a VC is not charity, so they still need to get a return on their investment. And I've begun to really understand that. But to a certain extent, success stories drives the behavior of more risk appetite. If there's one thing we've seen in Dubai, is that the Kareem story has now brought international press awareness, and people are now really interested, and family offices now looking to kind of not miss out or have FOMO the next time. Mohammed, we were speaking earlier and you were saying, what do you need to have more? I mean, we're obsessed with the word unicorns, but let's say large exits coming out of the Mashreq region.
Sure. I just have a thought about something that has just been discussed, which is how we can, one of the questions here, how we can have quality startups similar to the one that we can see in Silicon Valley. Actually, I just want to start with the point of having something that the entrepreneurship ecosystem is highly dependent on something called multiplier effect. So typically when we have a company that is going to a level that would be an exit or IPO, it does have something called multiplier effect. Let's talk back in 2009 when Maktub did their exit for Yahoo. It literally established 20 companies out of one exit. So multiplier effect is something that is very important. To get that into that level, I think the lack of capital at the later stage is something that it's a significant problem in the region. Because if we look at Kareem's story as an example, how much capital that they get in order to achieve inorganic growth that allows them to grow into a level of near unicorn. And if we compare ourselves with the size of funding that we get in the region compared to Silicon Valley's example, it would be silly to compare at different stages. Seed funding there, it could be few $1 million. Series A there could be $100 million. So when you say that companies are raising 100 million in the region, this is very, very rare. So we should not expect that a company that would raise funding on their total life less than $15-20 million would be able to create that kind of unicorn.
Okay, you just have one more
So,
minute. Okay, go.
sorry, yeah. So for in my opinion, I think there is an alignment coming on from the government, from the policymakers, from as well private sector, from stakeholders, and the importance of that. But I also think, and I also urge, that if we want to create that kind of high quality startups, success stories, we need to inject a lot of money that would, at the end of the day, would have the return that is required for VCs or private equity or family offices. But yet, till now, we are not seeing rounds of 20, 40, $60 million in the early stage or Series A. Yeah, that's my point.
Thank you, amazing.
Yeah, right. So, well, thank you. I just like to leave on one point that I think patience is a virtue to a certain extent. If you compare now to where we were 5 years ago or 10 years ago, there's clearly an acceleration that's taking place. But I think that one piece that I have to just share is that to get scale, to get growth, a lot more needs to be done to be less insular as geographies and to try and really understand when you talk about funding or bureaucracy, regulation, how you can allow for cross-border travel of startups will further help grow. If you're able to grow your market share, if you're able to get more revenue, if you're able to get more customers, investment will come, funding will come. But the barrier to entry to many of these geographies, or even the understanding of how to scale to such geographies, creates an element of an impediment to growth to many of these startups. So
can I just jump on one ending note? Because you said something interesting, that VCs is not charity. Actually, it is. It is charity until you exit. And if you don't exit, it's charity.
And on that note, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, this one? What do you want? ما بنعمل هذا. Okay, while they do that, using technology, I'm going to have one more Ignite talk, please, by Walid Hanna, the CEO of MEVP. So can you please come? Okay, أهلا. Hello, Walid. Thank you.
I thought it was 15. All right. I think there's a presentation that should be put on the screen. Anyway, my name is Walid Hanna. I'm the CEO of Middle East Venture Partners. First, I'd like to say how amazed I am by Jordan. Having a digital economy and entrepreneurship minister is never heard of. It's amazing, really, bravo. I hope every single country in the Arab world would have an entrepreneurship minister. This is great. Otherwise, I need my presentation. Oh, here it is. So it's about the right timing to be a tech entrepreneur. So is this the right time? Yes or no? Well, definitely yes, and I'm going to say why. Hold on. Shit. It's not working. Which one? Okay, I guess somebody's going to click on the slide. All right, so the macro picture is very encouraging. Next slide, please. I'm going to tell you why. So being an entrepreneur and a tech entrepreneur is really great in these days because we have a big population, 231 million internet users. The population is young, the purchasing power is quite high, and it's one market. The market is homogeneous, same consumer habits, consumer language, same culture, and we can build big companies with such a market. So if you have a digital good or service, you can scale across 22 countries seamlessly without being bothered by borders and customs. Next slide, please. So the population, again, is young, and the internet penetration has been growing steadily. It doubled in the last 8 years. Everybody uses their mobile phones. Some use it 8 hours a day, and we all buy and sell goods online, and this trend will only increase more and more. For example, in Saudi Arabia, they spend, I think that they have the world record with regards to YouTube usage, number 8 in Twitter usage. In the UAE, the smartphone penetration is the highest in the world. This is a big market. GCC has serious money in terms of purchasing power. So if you're an entrepreneur looking to target the MENA market, that's a great opportunity to do it now. Next slide, please. With regards to public and private sectors, next slide. I would say most of the efforts were from the private sector, not really the public sector. UAE has been leading the way, and definitely private sector, not public. We've been raising money from a lot of institutional investors and local family offices in the UAE and investing. But there are very few public sector initiatives. Accelerators, incubators, co-working spaces. Look at the number of funds available in the UAE. Let's compare to Saudi Arabia, please. Next slide. So Saudi, there's a lot of public entities, PIF, Munsha'at, SVC, and they've been funding accelerators, fund of funds, etc. Saudi Arabia is growing faster than the UAE, and it's going to catch up, and it's going to lead the way very soon. Next slide, please. Jordan and Lebanon are quite similar. We're a bit lagging behind. Jordan and Lebanon and Egypt and maybe somehow Iraq are acting as back office, but the front is always GCC because that's where the biggest market is. Jordan, we have 3 Jordanian companies out of our portfolio. We invested in 50 plus companies. Those 3 companies have moved out of Jordan, and that's also a Lebanese phenomenon. One of them is based here in this business park called Hyperpay, and they still have a big office here, but the main market is in Riyadh, so they moved the top management to Riyadh and became regulated, and most of the shareholders are becoming Saudi Arabian. Lamsa started as well in Jordan. They've been attracted by 2454, and now they're moving to Hub 71 with Mubadala money, and Jordan is losing by losing this amazing startup called Lamsa. Hassan Hallas is another Jordanian entrepreneur who has started developing his product maybe in Jordan, but moved to Dubai very quickly. It's called One Click. It's an amazing company, valued at, big numbers. I'm not allowed to say how big, but it's again a loss for Jordan. Despite the ecosystem that's been built in Jordan, we need to be able to keep the companies locally. Next slide, please. Lebanon is quite similar to Jordan. Most Lebanese entrepreneurs, they started pilot projects in Lebanon, in one of those accelerators, incubators, etc. And then they move out. They seek funding from the region. They try to target global markets. It's very tough to build a local market leader out of Lebanon or a regional. You have to move to the GCC, Dubai, Saudi. And that's what the Lebanese have been doing recently. It's very challenging for Levant countries. The problem is really the lack of funding, and we're going to talk about this in a second. Next slide. So definitely it is the right time. The tech clock is ticking, and the Middle East has been following the steps of other emerging markets. So we've been following closely what's been happening in India and China, and what we're seeing today is what we saw in those emerging markets 5-10 years ago. Amazing growth, as I mentioned earlier. Next slide. So you probably tried the 10-year challenge on Instagram. 10 years ago, the ecosystem used to look like that. Today, it's much more than that. It has multiplied by 50 or 100. Next slide. This is what today's MENA champion look like in those 6 verticals. We've seen a lot of startups in those verticals within the technology spectrum, mostly mobility, new media, fintech, e-commerce marketplaces, and food. You have no idea what's happening in the food delivery space in a country like Saudi Arabia. Huge numbers, huge growth, and there's a lot to do on the technology side, because all of these are internet businesses. Next slide. So, exits, because this was the eternal question. Used to go funding, and what's your exit strategy, and why haven't you exited many companies? We've exited 5 or 6 out of 50. But it's coming, it's happening, and we're very happy to see American, Japanese, South African, Turkish, even Emirati investors acquire companies from the Middle East. So it is happening. Next slide. That's a slide quite interesting. It's on our website. I invite you to check it out. It tells you how important the VC ecosystem has become and who's been co-investing with whom. That's the link on our website. It's an interactive slide. You click on any bubble and it will show you the links and who's been investing with whom. Again, 10 years ago, there was no one. There's probably 3, 4 bubbles. And I predict that 10 years from now, we won't be able to add enough space to include all the bubbles. Next slide. So that's my last slide. The interesting part is the pipeline. As venture capitalists, we look at 100 companies to invest in one. On average, we look at 1,000 companies on a yearly basis. This is more or less what happened in the last 2 years. So out of 2,000 companies, we invested in 15 or reinvested in some of them. The message is internet levels the playing field, really. Fintech gives a chance to the unbanked to become banked. We've talked about digital literacy, and the answer for all of that is really internet businesses. That's exactly what we invest in. We invest in internet businesses. We've been doing this for 9, 10 years, invested in 50+ companies. We've created thousands of jobs, thousands of sustainable jobs. And what I'm hearing today reminds me of what we've been living for the past decade out of MEVP. We managed to raise about $150 million from Kuwaitis, Saudis, Bahrainis, GCC money. But this is not patient capital. This is capital that requires a quick exit, a quick IRR, and they're not interested in investing in development and in developing countries. What we really need is more of World Bank, more DFIs, more of IFC, EBRD, EIB money. And I'm a bit disappointed to hear that the numbers, for example, ISME in Lebanon has received $30 million from the World Bank. That's good, but that's not amazing. ISSF has received $50 million out of a $98 million fund. $50 million for a company like Kareem is a runway for 1 year. Kareem has raised $770 million in the past 4 or 5 years before they managed to exit. It tells you how little those numbers are. We understand these are loans. These are loans given to government. These have to be reimbursed at some point. But still, we need much more patient capital to build the next generation of internet and technology companies out of the Middle East. And that's an appeal for the World Bank and to any DFI that's present in the room to multiply your loans and guarantees and investment by 10 or so. Final slide. We're based in the region, as you can see. We're looking to establish some presence in Jordan and Egypt. And we welcome any candidates. If you have a startup looking for Series A or B funding, we're open for business. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Somebody finishes before me. Thank you. Thank you so much. And now for our second Ignite talk by Riley Roger, the principal of Valia VC, please. Thank you. This is yours. It's much more fun. Great. And I'm going to take this. Thank you.
Clicker? No.
No, 10. We're good.
No, clicker?
Oh, clicker?
Yeah.
We're trying to figure that out. So just, sorry.
No problem. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? Excellent.
Really excited to be here. Thank you so much for the World Bank, Tekwadi, all the organizations who pulled this off. It's been a great few days in Jordan. It's my first time. I've learned a ton about the ecosystem, so excited to share a lot of the activity and a lot of the messages back to the rest of the folks we invest with, mostly in San Francisco. So, do we have the slides? So quick note, Value Ventures is a global venture capital fund. We work with family offices and corporates in this part of the world and have offices in New York and San Francisco. We look at companies globally and are excited to do more in this part of the world. And the slides will tell that story once we get them. Excellent. Yeah, of course. It was great. It was great. Funny. 13-hour flight. All right. Okay. No slides. Okay, no slides. So let's just have an open conversation. I have some backup here. Wish I could show you some of this data, but don't worry about it. So basic idea, let's just start with the facts. A lot of people talk about digital innovation, what the economies of today look like. But it really started 10 years ago when one of the famous investors in San Francisco, Mark Andreessen, said, software is eating the world. If we look at where we're at today, software is still eating the world. It's just going into sectors and going to industries that weren't part of that first wave, and we've seen that in some of the examples, like with oil and gas, industrial businesses, autonomous vehicles, and others. And the truth is, what's creating this opportunity and what's allowing this software to grow is startups. And ultimately, in today's world, in 2019, we can't ignore these companies anymore. The statistics are that right now, half of the S&P 500, half of the biggest companies in the US are going to leave that list over the next 10 years. And the companies that will replace them are the startups, are the digital companies that we're talking about today. So the basic idea behind a startup is it's a company that's hoping to scale faster than a regular self-funded business. And the way they do that is through venture capital funding. It's one of the key ingredients. It's what we heard about from MEVP. It's what we heard about from the investor panel. What venture capital firms are trying to do is find the next generation of market-leading businesses. So who are the next Kareems? Who are the next Ubers? Who are the next Airbnbs? That's what we're trying to do. And the basic idea is we spend all day long talking to entrepreneurs, and we're looking for those entrepreneurs. We're going to go out and build those businesses. In the US, venture has been massively successful. Today, we've seen that over the past 50 years, more than half of the public companies, more than half of the IPOs have been venture-backed startups. They account for over 80% of all R&D spending in the US, and they created a lot of the household names that we all know. Companies like Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google. These are all companies that started through venture capital funding. And these are the types of businesses that are creating the millions and millions of jobs that are creating the jobs of tomorrow. So we heard a bit about what the ecosystem looks like in this part of the world. We've seen a lot of progress. If you look at some of the numbers from Philip, from Magnet, we went from an ecosystem where there was less than $100 million invested 5 years ago to now nearly $800 million invested. We saw close to 400 deals last year, so the ecosystem is growing. Ultimately, in this part of the world, the number of venture capital funds, the number of deals that are done, and the number of dollars invested are all going up and to the right. So it's all been very successful, and it's all a lot of progress. Some of the names that we've talked about, like Kareem, like Swivel, like Souks, these are the massive exits and the growth rounds that investors have been looking for, and that allows more capital to come into this part of the world. So net, everything here is going well. But what's next? Where do we go from here? The simple idea is to build a startup ecosystem. It's not just one ingredient. It's not just the venture capital dollars. It's not just Valia. It's not MEVP. It's not any of the funds in this room that can do it on their own. We need everyone in this room, all the different parts of an ecosystem to work together to create that. Techstars, one of the biggest accelerators in the world, studied every single startup ecosystem that they invest in. What they found was there are 5 ingredients to create a startup ecosystem. One of them is capital, which we talked a little bit about. Second is regulation. Need to make sure, as we've talked about earlier, that you can allow these companies to be built. Third, and so that density in a particular ecosystem helps create that next wave. And the last ingredient is education. It's the institutions and the organizations that are allowing the next crop of entrepreneurs and allowing these teams around them to grow. So it's up to all of us in that room to support these companies and do whatever we can. And there's all sorts of ways to help out. What we do is invest in companies, but we're also looking for people to mentor companies. We're looking for people to help with hiring. We're looking for people who invest in venture capital funds. We're looking for all sorts of people and everyone in this room to be able to support the ecosystem, because we've made a ton of progress here, but we still have more to do. If we look at the list around the world of where venture capital dollars are lowest, it's here. If you look at a place like the US, we have $300 million, $100 billion ecosystem. Here, you have 400 million people, you have a $1 billion ecosystem. So you see where the gap is and you see where the opportunity is to grow. And hopefully, it's conferences like this, it's the opportunity to meet people in the room that can help to create, here are the slides, right as I'm finishing, perfect. It's people in the room and it's some of the things we talked about which will help to grow these ecosystems. So thank you again for having me. Looking forward to meeting the rest of you, and apologies for the technical glitch here. Thank you.
Okay. Technical issues always are fun. So now we'll hear from Saroj Kumar Jha, the Regional Director of the World Bank and Mashreq Ministers, on the commitments of governments to advance digital economies. Is he here? 1 minute? Sure. The others? طب 1 minister. أنت عن مليون. You have one of the most impressive ministers, so it'll be a great conversation. Yeah. This would be easier in case you need it, or you actually have your mic. Just in case. Technical issue.
No, so there is people here.
You can sit.
Okay. I'm expecting that piece of paper from my colleague where we have the communique for the event, but I want to say a few words before we get into this. Excuse me. Sorry? Is better now? So first of all, it's been an amazing day so far. We heard the Prime Minister of Jordan. We heard His Excellency Minister for Digital Economy and Entrepreneurship, Jordan. We also had a statement by the Minister for Communication from Iraq and the Minister for Investment and Technology from Lebanon. And of course, you heard my Vice President, Mr. Farid Balhaz, very early in the opening session itself. Now, one thing is very clear to me, that listening to all the presentations, and I tried to spend most of my time listening to various presentations, questions during the day, I'm very confident that what has been committed by the three governments today, we are going to work on those commitments and make sure that these commitments are not just statements, but we are going to implement those. And I'm going to walk you through some of those commitments which came through the action plan that has been presented by the government. As I mentioned yesterday, during the dinner reception, that given the situation we are facing in our group of countries where unemployment, especially the youth unemployment, is extremely high. About 35 to 38% is the unemployment in our group of countries. The other data point that I gave you yesterday evening as well, that the percentage of female labor force participation is one of the lowest. You saw those numbers also today again, 14 to 15% for Jordan, about 16, 17% for Iraq, and about 23, 24% for Lebanon. One of the lowest in the world. So we got to be able to address these issues. And I think that's where, in my view, this whole Digital Mashreq Forum plays an extremely important role. How do we basically address these challenges using technology, using digitization of government, digitization of business and service delivery, and use the very innovative minds, the young minds in this region to really become more successful entrepreneurs, more jobs being created in the region. I think that is our vision. So I'm going to walk you through what is going to be called the Amman Communication or Amman Communique, which will basically be a statement of commitment by the government of Jordan, government of Iraq, government of Lebanon, but there will also be a commitment by the World Bank. And I want all of you first to hold the World Bank accountable for what it does and what it does not do. Not just the governments. We are a multilateral institution. We are equally responsible for fulfilling our commitments in terms of what our role is to support the three governments. Now, the order in which I have the commitments here, I'm going to list them very quickly. So as I said, this will be called the first, the Digital Mashreq Forum's Amman Communique. And I'm going to start with the government of Iraq first. The government of Iraq is committed to further advancing the digital economy and aims to ensure affordable access to high-speed internet by doubling access to broadband to 54% in 2021 and 90% by 2030, achieving 100% broadband network coverage, establishing a conducive regulatory and policy framework for digital payments, developing interoperable digital payments infrastructure, and striving towards 100% financial access. The government of Iraq is also committed to delivering digital government services and ensuring highest standards of cybersecurity and data privacy to boost government trust, consumer trust. The government of Iraq is also keen to ensure that the education and training program meet current and future job market skills needs. So this is the government of Iraq's commitment. I'm going to start with the government of Jordan's commitment. The government of Jordan is committing to advance the digital economy as a strategic growth sector for the kingdom. On digital infrastructure, the government of Jordan commits to further developing access to internet broadband to reach 100% penetration rate by 2021. Wow. As part of that, the government of Jordan is opening the national broadband network, which is 7,000 kilometers of fiber, for public-private partnership, allowing affordable fiber broadband to 1.3 million households around Jordan. On digital payments, the government of Jordan is committing to increasing country-level cashless payments from 33 to 50% by 2020 and to digitizing 80% of the government to citizens payments by 2021. On developing digital skills, the government of Jordan will launch a national skills development initiative to train 35,000 people in the 21st century skills and mainstreaming digital skills in public schools to train 300,000 by 2022. To enable a friendly business environment for entrepreneurs, the government of Jordan is committed to launching a regulatory reform process following a participatory approach with ecosystem representatives. And to complete the automation of government services, the government of Jordan is committing to automate key services by 2021. Building on the recent transformations of the Ministry of ICT to the Ministry of Digital Economy and Entrepreneurship, the government of Jordan will launch its Digital Transformation Action Plan in partnership with the ecosystem by the end of 2019. Congratulations, Minister Muthanna. Now to Lebanon. The government of Lebanon is committing to building a digital nation and to transform Lebanon into a regional technology and innovation hub. The government of Lebanon is in the process of finalizing the Digital Transformation Action Plan and aims to double the knowledge economy's contribution to GDP and double the employment in this sector by 2025. To achieve this, the government of Lebanon plans to first reach 100% broadband penetration rate by the end of 2021, develop and execute the digital transformation of the public sector and offer citizens a fully digitized journey across all government services with 500,000 users signed up to the government digital platform by the end of 2021. Provide a supportive regulatory framework to help grow the fintech industry and facilitate digital payments, launch a new national digital currency by the end of 2020, and launch an electronic trading platform to improve financing for private sector activities in 2020, leverage this pool of skilled and entrepreneurial talent in Lebanon and abroad to build a digital economy focused on innovation and private initiative, address the existing skills gap by preparing the youth for the global digital jobs of the future through launching a national training academy by 2021. Now to World Bank. So you heard my vice president say in the morning that the World Bank has committed to support the three governments, three countries, to make sure that at least 500,000 young boys and girls, women and men in these three countries, they are upskilled, they are reskilled, and they have the capacity and the expertise for the jobs of tomorrow and the jobs of future. And that's our vision. So this is one of the commitments we've already made. I also want to mention, in response to a suggestion that was made earlier by one of the presenters, the need for more financing. And I want to say openly here that currently the World Bank is financing roughly, as somebody pointed out, in the three countries together, the scale of financing that we are providing is close to about $150 million in about 2 or 3 projects. I commit, if the three governments are interested to work on these issues and they need financing, we are ready to provide up to $1 billion additional financing to these three countries to help implement these action plans. And this will be over and above. We also have IFC, where the private sector needs more resources and they have bankable projects or PPPs. IFC, Dalia is somewhere in the room. IFC colleagues are in the room. We'll be very happy to work together. But you heard our Vice President today in the morning. My team is here and I'm committing to you that we will be with you at every step of the way in the three countries' commitments, and we want to make these commitments a reality. Of course, you have the leadership. We are behind you. We'll put our expertise and our financing. But let me also read what my colleagues have suggested I should read as far as the World Bank's commitment is concerned. So the World Bank commits to support Iraq, Lebanon, and Jordan in achieving their vision and plans for digital transformation by providing necessary resources and instruments. The World Bank will work closely with the governments, private sector, academia, civil society to maximize the impact of digitization and reap the digital dividends for their societies. This support will include the following. First, pursuing the plans to ensure affordable access to high-speed internet and facilitate investment in broadband, delivering digital government services and improving access to data while ensuring the highest standards of cybersecurity and data privacy, developing a modern digital payment infrastructure, scaling up digital entrepreneurship, and ensuring education and training programs meet current and future skill needs. There's one thing I'm going to suggest which is not here, which I would like to add. The gender digital gap. I talked about the challenges our women and girls are facing in this region. And it's very important that we bring those commitments to be reflected in the Amman communique. In about 10 months' time, Amman will also be holding the second Mashreq high-level gender forum. And one of the ideas we have is that event in 2020, the focus should be on role of the women in the digital Mashreq, so that we bring the two themes to come together and see how we can support more women and empower them to realize the potential of digital economy of the three countries. I'm also pleased to announce, based on the consent we have received from the Lebanese government, that the second high-level digital Mashreq forum, the second edition of this, will be held in Beirut in June 2020, so that when we meet in 2020, we will first start from what we have done in the last 12 months. Government of Iraq, Government of Lebanon, Government of Jordan, and the World Bank. We'll have to first say what we did before we talk about the future. But thank you very much, everyone, for being part of this journey all day and what we've done before this forum today to prepare the three countries action plan and what we are collectively committing to do. I personally learned quite a lot today. And I want to continue to be on the learning path with all of you. I think these young people from the three countries and people who've come from outside You are simply amazing. You know, I'm amazed by the talent and the innovation you guys are doing. And sometimes I wonder, why can't the World Bank be a lot more effective and make these guys, you know, more cheerful and give them everything that you need to shine. And that is our commitment. We will set up some kind of an inbox where you are able to communicate with the three government and the World Bank 24/7. With any entrepreneur working in this, you heard the Prime Minister today morning, he said, he was talking about he went to a high school in the robotics lab and he found this, somebody who wanted to go for a competition, didn't have the resources, and he came forward. We will try to scale it up so that the government, the World Bank, and others who want to be part of this will set up some kind of an inbox so that everyone who's looking for opportunity, we are able to connect them with where resources are available. But thank you very much. I can go on and on, but let me hand over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Saroj, very much. Actually, going back to the story about the robotics lab, you know, this happens every year. I mean, a month ago, I went to Jollibee School, and I met maybe 7 teams who wanted to go to competitions. And the government has, I mean, the Telecommunication Regulatory Commission has supported their travel, and they all won prizes, by the way. The fun part of what His Excellency said, that when he went at 3 o'clock in the morning to receive them, he found half of Irbid waiting for them. Now, we are people who celebrate success, and we can celebrate more success. And we need to make sure that we celebrate success. To continue what you have said, we are committed, and we will do much more. And going back to the previous session, because I was listening to Laith, definitely governments cannot do this alone. And that's why you are one of the new tools for the future. I mean, you are a CEO of ISSF, which is a project that the government with the central bank and the World Bank have done. We're trying to create the tools for the wars of tomorrow and to skip the tools of yesterday, because we cannot win the wars of tomorrow with the tools of yesterday. Accordingly, we have you all with us, and you are our tools. We're going to use you and abuse you, and I'm using everyone in the room, even the daughters and sons of people in the room are helping me in some stuff. We're going to use you and abuse you. We're going to build when we said that we're going to do our strategy, we agreed with the J-Corps that we're going to write a strategy for entrepreneurship with the ministry together. It's going to be a joint strategy. I'm not going to make my strategy alone. We're going to be in a workshop together to write our strategy and commitments all together. It's going to happen. It will work. Next year, we're going to celebrate success. Thank you.
Inshallah. Thank you very much. And I do want to ask everyone that give this man really a round of applause. He really deserves it. I can tell you, he's gotten everyone inspired to work on this agenda. Not just in Jordan, not just in Jordan, but also outside.
I have a few notes to inform you. First, your badges, please keep them with you tomorrow. If you have headsets, please make sure that you return them. And also, please take a few minutes to appreciate the art that we brought from a gallery to you, because we know how much you don't have time to visit galleries. So thank you so much for everything. We want you now to go, please, to network. Let me tell you exactly what we have. We are going to be networking with regional and global investors and 45 entrepreneurs from the Mashreq. Thank you, and see you tomorrow.